want to know from in the chat, or if someone's willing to raise their hand, what have we been learning about lately? So what was the last lesson about for some of the new students? And just to recap, what have we been learning about? Specifically the last lesson.
Mr. S,
Yeah.
Tembile has her hand raised, but I don't know if it's from something you said previously or this question.
Okay. Tembile, what were we learning about in the previous lesson? Can you tell us? So I see Pafano has put a comment. We were learning about the cosine, well, the cosine rule. Okay, I see Mr. Bising also said so. We're using the cos, we learned about something called the cos rule. And in the last lesson, we used the cos rule to help us find sides of a triangle. So sometimes, well, what we had is we would often have a situation where we had a triangle. Let's do this, get a different color. And we were given the length of one side, like this one, and then we were given the length of another side, and we were given the angle in between those two sides, and then we had to find the unknown side. And so we used the cos rule. And the way we described it was something like this: a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. Now, if you're joining us for the first time today, you may be thinking, yo, that is quite a lot. And so I just want to get a sense from the class. When I write that a squared equals b squared and so on, give me a thumbs up if you feel familiar with that. Give me a thumbs down if you're like, whoa, this man is talking another language now. I just want to get a sense of how my students are coming to class today. Okay, fantastic. Now, if you still feel a bit unsure, remember that the video of the previous lesson was recorded where we dealt with that. Now, the focus today is not going to be on finding sides. Rather, it's going to be on finding angles with the cos rule. And so I want you to have a look at this drawing I've got on the screen here. And I want someone to tell me, what do they notice that is different in this drawing compared to the last lesson? What is new about this this drawing? We never had one like this in the last lesson. I'd love someone to raise their hand. Nolotando, I see that hand. Tell me what is different about this particular triangle.
Hi, sir. So first of all, they gave us the values of each side, and then they did not give us an angle.
This
any
is
angle.
very important. So Nolotando, you've hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much. I've given you the value of 3 sides, but I have not given, there is no angle given. And so this is a very different world to before. So what does the question actually ask? The question says, find me angle A. So I'm going to suggest the question is telling me, find that angle up here. And what I've given you is 3 sides. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this question first using the cos rule that's on the screen. And then after that, for the rest of the lesson, we are going to use a simpler way of writing. But I'm going to start with what we did in the previous lesson. Okay, if you had to use the previous lesson's knowledge to write this out, would you agree with me that using the cos rule, I can start with 7 squared because it's opposite the angle. And then that's going to be equal to 8 squared plus 5 squared. Let me actually just get rid of this for a second. So 8 squared plus 5 squared minus 2, but here. Okay, so that is, what are my 2 sides? It's 8 and 5. Give me a thumbs up if you understand how I wrote this using the cos rule from the last lesson. Now notice how I focused on the thing that was opposite the angle I needed. Okay. So all I needed to think in my mind is I needed to know, okay, I want this angle. Now, to use the cos rule, I normally look for the two sides and the included angle, which means that when I wrote it out, the one that was by itself was going to be the 7 over here. And that takes quite a lot of learning and thinking and so on. Now, what's different to the lesson before is that the 7 squared is a number. In the last lesson, that would be a variable. Now, in this lesson, what we want to do is we want to find out what the cos of A is. And so what we could do is we want to find out what would happen if we got the cos of A all by itself. And so I want to suggest the following. I want to say that if I move this whole cos of A thing over, all this, in fact, let me take a highlighter. I'm going to move this whole thing. It is a minus, and it's going to become a plus on this side. So, in fact, let me minus that. Yeah, let's move it across like this. So 7 squared plus 2 times 8 times 5 times the cos of A. And then I'm going to leave the 8 squared plus the 5 squared on this side. And I am going to have to deal with the 7 squared. And so what I'm then going to do is I'm going to take away the 7 squared from both sides. And so I'm going to get 8 squared plus 5 squared minus 7 squared. And then I'm left with just this 2, 8, 5 cos of A. Just want to pause for a second because I know there was a lot going on the screen. And I want to get a quick thumbs up or thumbs down vote. Thumbs up if you follow what's going on so far. Thumbs down if you're feeling a bit confused. Remember, the main goal with why I'm doing this is I want to find my angle, which is over here. Okay, there's a bit of a mixture. Now, guys, the good news is I'm going to make this much simpler once you've seen kind of this process. So I promise the first 10 minutes is a bit tough, and then after that, it's going to get easier. So now I need to deal with this bit over here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring that whole thing to the other side. So the cos of A equals A squared plus 5 squared minus 7 squared. And then I'm going to write 2 times 8 times 5. So what I want you guys to do, and I want you to put this in the chat, what is the number that I get for all of these things? What is the number that I get if I go 8 squared plus 5 squared minus 7 squared over 2 times 8 times 5? And I want you to put that in the chat. Okay, I see Nolotondo, you're on fire. Who else? What do you guys get if you do that? Rafiwe, I see you've got a half. Cesar's got a half. Okay, so I'm pretty confident that we get a half. Okay, I'm not even gonna, I can see enough people have got that. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to take the cos of a half. So that your cos of A equals a half. And I want you to find what is the angle A actually going to be. Now, in order to get that angle A, you need to go shift cos 0.5. So shift cos 0.5 or inverse cos 0.5, and we get, I can see it coming through loud and clear, it's 60 degrees. Now, I want to ask someone to come online. There is a much quicker way of doing this. But before I do that, I want to ask what makes this question so difficult, or what's the hard part of what the example I've just done? And I'd love someone to raise their hand and just tell me what was difficult about this, and what part would we like to get rid of? Is anybody willing to offer a comment? Otherwise, I'll suggest what I think, but I would love to hear it from a student if you're able to. Okay. So, William, yes. Hi, William. What do you think
hello,
makes
sir.
it a bit hard? Yeah.
I think what makes it hard is having to transpose the whole term when it
Yeah.
starts by -2.
Yes. So I think what makes it hard is this whole mess, not mess, but this whole process over here. It feels like what we need is we need to write the cos rule where we get the angle that we're trying to find all by itself. Like if we could start life by just saying we want to find the angle, can't we just write the angle down by itself? It feels like that would be much easier. Give me a thumbs up if you agree with that. Give me a thumbs down if you think, I just want to get a sense, because I think that's the problem. Normally, when we want to find angles, we want to start by writing down the angle by itself to save us all this problem. Okay. So now what I need to do is I need to recognize the pattern that I used so that I don't have to do this from scratch every time. And I want to point the pattern out, and then I'll do it from scratch with you using the simple and quick way. If we look at the method, if we look at the actual the angle that we were looking for at the very beginning, the negative in the final answer. So if I look at A, what is the side that is opposite the angle I'm after? It's 7. Can you see that the 7 is a -7 squared in my working out? The other thing I want you to see is that at the bottom is 2 times the length of 2 sides. Now, what are those 2 sides? Those 2 sides are the sides that are not opposite the angle I'm looking for. So let me see if I can point this out. So I really want you to notice the side that is a negative is opposite the angle I'm looking for. Then the other 2 sides are just squared and added together. And then below the line, it's 2 times the 2 sides that are not opposite the angle I'm looking for. So that sounds like a bit of a mouthful, and I'm going to show it to you again in another example. But basically, we need to now, for today, the goal is learning how to write the cos rule where the angle and the cos are the subject of the formula. Okay, take a screenshot of this page if you need to, and then I'm going to actually show you how to do this in the short way. And you're going to be like, oh my goodness, I appreciate the short way so much. All right. So here is the same question that I just did with you, and I'm going to do it the shorter way. So here is angle A that I'm looking for. So I'm going to use the cos rule, but I'm going to use it in its angle form. I'm going to write the cos of A equals. Now, the side that I know is a negative is this one over here. So I'm going to put -7 squared there. Then the other parts that I know are squares are just the 2 other sides. So I get 8 squared plus 5 squared. And I know that there was a 2 times 2 sides at the bottom. What were those 2 sides? Well, they weren't the side that was opposite the angle. They're just going to be that side there. Now I use my calculator. I get cos of A is equal to 1/2. And then I go shift cos of 1/2, and I get my angle A is equal to 60. So it's so much quicker because you don't have to go through all the transposing as you go. So what I want to give you is an opportunity now to do the same method, but on a different looking question. So take a screenshot of this one if you need to. And then it's time for you to shine brightly. So here is your question. I want you are given 3 sides of a triangle. You are then asked to find the angle theta. Whenever you are given 3 sides in a triangle and you need to find an angle, your only option is the cos rule, but you're not going to write it where the sides are by themselves. You're not going to write it 6 squareds equal. You're going to start by writing the cos of theta. And I'm going to give you a chance to do that. And then I'm going to ask for some students to come on the line and give me some suggestions. Setimbile, can I repeat the shortest way? I will give you a hint, or how about I leave the other example up? So can everybody see if I do that? If I basically leave the previous example on the screen. And so, Sitimbile, I'm going to ask you to then look at the example that is above to help you start with this one. And this is going to be the cos of theta. Okay, over to you guys. And then if you can give me some help, I'd love you to raise your hand. And I'd love to hear from, maybe get some help from the class. So this is the essence of the lesson, is just learning this skill today. And I promise by the end, you will feel so I want to know from someone in the class, what is step one that you would do? So after you've written down the cos of theta, what is the first thing that you would do? I don't want the whole answer. I just want step one. What would your step one be? Okay. Level, can you unmute? Let's see, Bing is saying I can't get, there's so many students, I can't actually see where.
Who, Peter?
There's a student that raised their hand, I think. Or maybe it's they haven't
I
raised it,
think
or they've raised it in the chat, not on the.
Oh, Tabi saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, sir.
Hi. What's your step one?
So, sir, for my first step, I looked for the opposite, which was the 6, and I put it on
Yes.
the end.
Okay.
And then I
And-
took, and then I said 11 squared plus 8 squared.
Aha. So you did your -6 squared, and then you did the other one, and let me use a different color just to make it emphasize. You went 8 squared plus 11
squared.
Okay, I like that. I think you have been very helpful to a lot of students. I'm going to ask another student to tell me the second step. Thank you, man. That was awesome. Who would like to give me the second step? Tandwa. What would you do for the denominator?
For the denominator, I said 2 times 8 times 11.
And again, loving it. And what you start to see is the pattern. Tandwa, that is awesome. Okay. Now, what I need in the chat is the number. What is the number that you get when you put all these numbers things together? Okay, so you're going to get some decimals, and then you need to go shift cos of theta. Okay, so we're getting 0.85. Now there will be some decimals or 0.846, etc. And then I want you to find what is the value of theta that you get from that. Sitimbile, I see that. Lusanda, I see it. Guys, it's looking awesome. It's looking awesome. So I see in the chat lots of 31,79s, and I'm going to bring up my answer now in a moment. That's not the right. Wait. Let me actually just make sure that we get everything. I'll do the calculation myself. So I'm going to go 8 squared plus 11 squared minus 6 squared divided by, let's make sure I got this right, 2 times 8 times 11, 0.846 and so on. Now, once I've got my equal sign there, so I'm going to hit, I've got that answer, then I'm going to go shift cos answer. I get 32.16, guys. So 32.16. Now, the reason the reason you guys have got the other answer is you've been rounding off this piece here. And what I'm going to suggest is when you do the calculation over here and you press equals, that is stored in what we call the answer key on your calculator. And so when you go cos -1 to get theta, I want you to hit the answer key, because that will have stored the values. You can still write down 0.846 and so on, but you want to not lose the decimals at that point. So you should get 32.16. If you chop off some decimals, you will have some rounding errors. And so that's why I'm going to suggest when you do this first calculation and you hit equals, it goes into the answer variable. I don't know if you can see my calculator. I don't know how good it is. Can you see the, it's the other way around. Hey, there's an answer button at the bottom here. And basically that gets stored. Whenever you hit equals on your calculator, that value gets stored in the answer. Okay. Let's do one more of these. And then we'll have a break after that, because we need a break after this. We need to stretch it out. Take a screenshot if you need. You should have, as long as you were getting in the region of 32, you're doing the process correctly. It's just that you may have had some rounding errors. Okay, screenshot alert, 3, 2, 1. In fact, this is a multiple choice question. So I want you to choose the correct option for this. Which of the 4 options is going to be the correct way of writing out the law of cosines for a focus on the angle? In that, we're going to have a chance to, we're going to practice this more in the second half of the lesson. So don't worry if you're not getting it yet. We will have more opportunities. That's all we're going to do. We're just going to repeat this for the rest of the lesson. I don't see a lot of variation in the answers. All I see is B, 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 B. Let's see if I agree. I'm trying to find the cos of C, which is here. So I'm looking for a -5 squared. So I cross off those two. And then I know I need 11 squared plus 9 squared. So it could be B or D. But then I need 2 times, it can't be this. So the correct answer is B, because I was looking for the 2 sides that weren't involved with the angle, which is this one and that one. So the correct answer is going to be B. Let's squeeze in one more question before the break, because you guys are doing well, and I think it will help you to do one more of these. Let me go. I'll leave that for afterwards. Okay. No, let's not do a decimal. Let's do this one, the purple one. So everyone, can you try and solve for me for the angle X in this particular drawing? Make it a bit bigger. So start by writing it out. And then once you've written it out, see if you can find what this angle over here is. And look again, we've got all 3 sides. So we're using the cos rule. Yep, non-turquoise or purple for you. So I'm going to write down the cos of X just to get me started. And then I know there's going to be 2 lines. So what is going to be in each of these 2 lines? I remember from the last question, the 14 is kind of important. So I'm going to put that there. And then I'm going to put my 20 squared and my 12 squared here. And then I know it's 2 times. And then I remember it doesn't involve the 14. It just involves these 2 above here. So it's 20 and 12. Now, in my calculator, I'm going to type this in. And what am I going to get? 20 squared. And so I'm getting 0.2725, but then because I've hit the equals button on my calculator, I'm just going to go shift cos answer key, and I should be getting, for the angle X, I should be getting 43.53 degrees, which would be this angle over here. So the good news is, remember that first thing of the lesson, remember the first part of the lesson where it took so long to just do one question. Look how much faster it is if we learn how to memorize the cos rule in 2 different ways. And so that's what I'm going to encourage you to do going forward. When you want to find sides with the cos rule, you use the sides description of it. When you want to find angles, you use the angle description of it. And learning both those layouts will help you a lot to use this tool effectively. Okay, give us a thumbs up if you're feeling good. Give us a thumbs down if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. Just want to get another check of the class. Okay. All right. Yeah, Priscilla, I agree. And the reason I show you that first method is because I really want to convince you that this way is faster. And I find that if students don't see it in contrast, they never really understand how much quicker it is to memorize the 2 different ways. Okay, what I want to do now is I want us to stand up and stretch. And so our brains have worked really hard for half an hour. We need to invest in our future, guys. And I want you to stand up and stretch. I'm going to stand up, and I'd love you to turn on your cameras so that Label can basically comment on how fantastically we're all stretching, myself included. And we can only do that if we can see your lovely faces. So please turn on your cameras, guys, and stretch with me for a moment. My personal favorite is a bit of a neck roll. Oh, I can feel some clicks. And then a little stretch with the cart may also work well.
Some of the students are in the dark because of load shedding.
Load shedding.
Yeah.
When is that going away?
I see Tabi saying and William.
There we
Great
go.
job, guys. Lesejo, iPhone, Rachel,
iPhone.
Lindo Gutle.
Absolutely. Oh, that feels good. Doesn't it feel good to stretch it out, guys? Just invest in yourself. Come on, let's do this. We've worked hard. We deserve a break. We can't just sit there. And...
Yeah.
Oh, that feels so
great
fantastic.
one, guys.
And then let's do a little, while they're stretching it out, and please do not stop yet. Here's a little brain break challenge for today. So, not going to leave you in suspense for too long, but what do you think? Now, normally 8 plus 11 is 19, I agree, but I suspect it may not be in this situation. So what do you think? Oh, Ntokozo, you made me think maybe we should have a 30-second dance off for our next, which will not be pretty, but it maybe is something that we need to bring in. So, yeah. Oh, I think you guys are quick. Rachel and Bufano, how did you know how to get that? Do you want to tell us how to do it? Do you want to come online quickly? How did you do it? Just raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Okay, Rachel, how did you do it?
I say, hello, sir.
Hey.
I say 21 plus 8 plus 11.
21 plus 8. And how did you know to do that?
I checked with the previous ones on the top.
So 5 plus 2 plus 5 is 12. And then 12 plus 3 plus 6 is 21. And so you were just following that same pattern. Yes. I see a number of you got that. And that was, yeah, I thought that was a fun little brain break, and well done to you all. Okay. Yep. Okay. So let's power through for our last 15 minutes here. Let us, yeah.
Before you continue, can you please write the equation again for the late students?
Okay. So how do we, okay, well, let me do an example one quickly, and then we'll do another one after that. So if I look at this next one, I have to find the angle XZY. So XZY would be this angle here. And so basically I'll call it angle Z. If I want to use the cos rule to find an angle, I need 3 sides. I have 3 sides. So now how do I write this down? So I write the cos of Z is equal to, and it's always going to have this structure. And I asked myself, what is the side opposite the angle I need to know? It's 17. And so I'm going to put minus 17 squared in there. The other parts of it are going to be the other 2 sides, and they're going to be added together squared. So 22 squared plus 20 squared. Then at the bottom, I'm going to have 2 times a side. And the only sides that are going to be involved are going to be the 22 and 20. Basically, the sides that are not opposite the angle I'm trying to find, which was Z. Let me make my Z red so you can see that. So that is the step of writing out the cos rule, where we make the angle basically the focus of the equation. After that, we have to still get a number. And so if we could just put that number in the chat, that would be awesome. What number do you guys get? So 22 squared plus 20 squared minus 17 squared divided by 2 times 22, 20. Okay, so this is quite a messy decimal number, like 0.6761. I'm not even going to write the whole thing down because I'm using the answer function, the answer variable in my calculator. So basically I pressed equals. I know that that number, that long number, is sitting in my calculator's memory. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to find Z. I go cos of -1, or on my calculator, I'm going to go shift cos, then I hit the answer key on my calculator, and then equals. And I should get the value of Z. I should get 47.46 degrees. So the only time where, for those students who were late, I know I just did that quickly, but that is the basic structure we're using. And the angle I've now found is this angle here, 47.46. How do I punch it into your calculator? So what you're going to do is, first of all, I type in, let me do it with the highlighter. So first of all, I make sure I can type in all this stuff. And then I hit equals to get the answer of this. Then it's sitting in my calculator's memory. Then I simply go shift cos, which is, it'll give me this thing, and I hit the answer key. And then that, when I press equals again, will give me this thing down here. What I'll try and do is, let me in the next lesson see if I can't have some sort of emulator or something up to specifically show you the keys. Okay. But the other important thing is each time you get the answer right and you can see it, you'll see that you're getting closer to the answer or the process that you need to learn. All right. So next question. I want you guys to find me angle X in the green question. And I'll leave the other one up for now, just so that you guys can see it, especially those of you who were late. So I want you to find me angle X, which is sitting down here. And I want you to practice getting the calculator steps right so that we get the same answer at the end. Mandla, I see your hand is up. I'd love to answer your question now. I'm going to unmute you, Mandla. Yeah. Go ahead. Can you hear me, Mandla? You're a bit quiet. Can you hear me? Mandla, you're very quiet. Somehow the audio has got a bit, I'm afraid, yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay, I can hear you too, very faintly. What can I do for you? Ah. Okay, Mandla, it's a little bit too quiet, so I can't hear you properly. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and answer this question, and hopefully you can use the chat. Apologies for that. I don't know why it was coming through so unclearly. So the cos of X, so I have the two sides, the side. I know the 11 is the important bit here. This is the one that's different. So I don't have to put it there first, but I like doing that because I remember 13 squared plus 19 squared, 2 times 13 times 19. Okay, and so how do we key this in our calculator? I'm literally going to go 13 squared. Well, actually, what I would probably hit is I would hit the fraction button if you've got the fraction button on your calculator, or you can key it in. Basically, you have a fraction, so 13 squared plus 19 squared minus 11 squared, and then divided by 2 times, divided by 2 times 13 times 19. And again, we get quite a messy looking decimal. So it's like 0.8279, blah, blah, blah. And so what I'm going to do is I just use so X is shift cos, which gives you basically called cos minus 1. And then I'm going to hit the answer key. So let's do that. Shift cos answer key. And we should be getting 34.11. Okay. Indinaye, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, sir. I want to ask a question.
Go ahead, please. I'd love to have a question.
Yes, I was asking that, do you see that negative minus 11 to the power of 12?
Yes.
How do I do if I have to subtract it with a number? Because I saw it on the first one you were showing us. You subtracted negative 6. So how do you see if you're supposed to subtract with this number?
Okay. The very important thing that you need to remember is when the question started, you were looking for the value of X. Now, what is the side that is opposite X? Can you see it's the 11?
Mm.
That's why it's the side that is opposite the angle you're trying to find that is going to be negative. You'll see the same thing happened in the last one. Can you see, if you look at the previous question, which is the side that is opposite? The angle I want to find is in red. The side that is opposite that angle is 17. Look at my formula. Can you see how the 17 is the one that's being subtracted?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the way I remember it. And then on the bottom, you've got 2 times the other 2 sides that are not opposite it.
Oh, okay.
So let's try you can take a screenshot. We're just going to do one more. I want everyone. Have we done this one already? I think we may have done it. Not the cos of C. No, we haven't done it. So let's do another question. So using the law of cosines, which is the correct value for the cos of C? Maybe we have done it. I can't. Sometimes they look similar.
Mr. S.
Yeah.
Kuma is asking if they will be penalized for not writing the general formula in a test or exam.
No, you don't need to write the general. In the context of this, part of the trigonometry, you do not need to write the general formula. You just write the answer, which is 34,11. In this particular question, it just relates to the angle over here, 34.11. Okay, I see everyone's choosing B, which was the same question as before. So I think I gave you the same question twice. So yeah, we did it. Okay, so it wasn't the same one. I just obviously copied and pasted this question twice. So yeah, to make it clear, even though it's a trig equation, when you're solving for an individual angle with the cos rule, there is no uncertainty, there's no ambiguity. You just write the one solution down. Okay. Let's do one more question if we can. Yeah, let's do one more, then we'll bring the day to an end. So let's do this one. So calculate the smallest angle in the triangle. Now I like this one because it doesn't actually say which one. So I'm going to give it letters. Which of the three angles is the smallest in this triangle? Tell me in the chat. Which of the three is the smallest? How do you know it's the smallest? I'm interested to know. Who would like to tell me, or who would like to? Rafiwe, yes, tell us, how do you know which one is the smallest?
9 is the smallest side over all the sides.
Yes. And so what does that mean about the smallest angle?
It means that the angle is small.
Yeah, so the smallest angle will always be opposite the smallest side. And so the biggest angle will always be opposite the biggest side. So we know we want to find in this question angle C, which means that you're going to start by writing down what is the cos of C. Now, I want to finish this lesson. I want you guys to find what C is. Yes, Rafiwe, that was insightful. Thank you very much. Okay. So I know I'm going to have my -9 squared. You did super well, Rafiwe, super well. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a messy decimal, 0.8529, blah, blah, blah. What is my final angle C going to be? I get 31.47 degrees.